kids eat.
Welcome to the Holistic Kids Show. My name is Zane.
And my name is Abdullah.
We're the Holistic Kids, here to educate and empower us kids from the inside out.
Today, it is our honor to speak to a psychotherapist and a true mama healer, Miss Giustra-Kozek.
Wait, what is a psychotherapist?
A psychotherapist is someone who is trained to help those suffering from stress, depression, anxiety, and other mental conditions. But Miss Kozek took her degree to the next level and became a truly healer inside and out. Her story is so inspirational, helping to empower parents and kids, as it shows us kids the power of how our everyday decisions can either help your body or hurt you. Giustra-Kozek, LPC, NCC, is a mother, wife, board-certified psychotherapist, and internationally recognized blogger, advocate, and national speaker. Her mission became personal when her son was diagnosed with ADHD and an autism spectrum disorder. Seeing him struggle with everyday issues, she wondered whether her son's disorder could be treated with natural remedies. Eventually, she found better solutions than any conventional specialist has ever offered. She is the author of a 5-time award-winning book, Healing Without Hurting, treating ADHD, Apraxia, and autism spectrum disorders naturally and effectively without harmful medications, and has recently released a children's book, Healthy New Me and ADHD Free. She has been featured in the Heal documentary, on many podcasts, news stories, and her articles appear in many publications.
Thank you, Miss Kozek, for joining us today.
Thank you. That was an incredible introduction. Thank you, guys. Very much. So do you guys have lots of questions for me today?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So go ahead. Shoot.
Miss Kozek, with the rates of autism on the rise and conventional doctors tell parents that is now their family's new normal with no cure. What made you think to keep looking for your answers?
We would love to hear your story.
That's a very good question. So I have a very smart aunt who lives in New York, who really believes in holistic medicine and always went to holistic doctors. And she told me when my kids were really little that she thought that I needed to change the diet. And she thought that maybe my kids had some food sensitivities, and that was what was causing some of their behavioral problems and their speech problems, and that it was an autoimmune problem. So that's kind of what started me. And then she sent an article to me about how to heal autism using special diet, along with certain nutrients and fatty acids and fish oil and things like that. So that was kind of my first introduction into beginning to heal my kids.
Yeah, we would love to hear your story.
Yeah, so what happened was I had a son who was clearly on the spectrum from a very young age. He had a lot of motor problems and a lot of speech problems. And his first diagnosis was speech apraxia. So we went to a bunch of specialists, and they just told us that therapies were basically the only thing we can do to help him. And the pediatricians were basically telling me that I would have to probably put him on medication at some point. And I did not want to do that because I am a psychotherapist, and I knew what medication was doing to some of my young clients, and that they were becoming more angry. They might have become more depressed, and it really wasn't doing anything to address the underlying root problem. So I started to look for more a holistic pediatrician, who we go to see now, a holistic pediatrician. And I also see naturopathic physicians that understand that nutrition and detoxification and all of these things actually helps our immune system and that mental illness have changed my mind about what it is. I do treat a lot of people with trauma. So sometimes there is trauma in a family, but more and more kids are now coming in with no trauma, but yet they're, displaying a lot of psychiatric, symptoms. So now I'm able to, in my psychotherapy practice, I'm able to refer them to the right doctors to get them the help that they need.
Wow, those everyday decisions you made to help empower your son is so powerful.
Most of us kids live our lives thinking what we put in our bodies and our environment has nothing to do with their health. But in your story, just with the everyday decisions your son made, he was able to heal that autism and get lots of and get off lots of medications. Wow, there is so much hope.
Yeah, there really is. I mean, parents really don't realize that the food today in our store shelves really isn't food, right? And so once you start to recognize that a lot of the food on the store shelves are actually just preservatives and chemicals and food like food. So, and a lot of kids are very addicted to the amount of sugar that's in these foods, the amount of salt that's in these foods, and the kids crave it. And so what happens is that's the only thing they're eating. They're very, very picky eaters. Very, very picky eaters. There's a lot of kids, and I don't know if you guys know a lot of your friends that really are very picky that only eat like 3 things. Does that ever happen where you go to, right, where your friends don't eat food? Yeah. Right? It's hard, right? Isn't it hard?
Mm-hmm. It's hard.
Sometimes, right? Do you guys have some friends that eat healthy food too?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
I love when I get to meet somebody or meet a family that eats the way we eat. It makes it so much easier to get together with them. Right? So
yeah.
So we have to bring a lot of our own food places. I'm sure you guys know all about that. We make sure that we go to a party that we bring. We eat a lot of gluten-free and dairy-free food. We eat, whole food, nutritious food. So yeah, we'll have to bring substitutes. So we always try to figure out what the host is supplying, and then we try to bring our version of it, if necessary. Do you guys do that too?
Right, Zen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
To bring all of our food with us.
Yeah. Yes. Same here. We do the same thing. So yeah. So we realized that we were eating a lot of food that really wasn't food. And when we started to change the diet for Evan, we started to see great improvements in his mood and his behavior and his speech issue. So we knew that we were on the right path. And so we did a lot of things to help him really get the support that he needed through nutrition and really boost his immune system. And I didn't realize that the immune system, you guys know this, that the immune system is actually in our digestive system and in our gut, and that our brain and our gut are connected. So most doctors, right, will know that when you have a stomach ache, for example, that you might, or if you have a headache, that you might have anxiety. But if you have a stomach ache, you can have anxiety too, because it works both ways. And so I didn't know that when I first became a therapist. So I only thought that medication was the only way to solve this problem. And I didn't realize that ADHD is really most often a nutritional deficiency, right? So the body's not getting the nutrients it needs. And then there's usually a digestive component. So the body's not breaking down fats, isn't breaking down proteins. I have a question for you guys. Do you know, so in order to feel happy, right, you need neurotransmitters. Lots of really good neurotransmitters. You guys ever hear that term before, neurotransmitters? On the brain? So I have a quiz question for you. What makes the neurotransmitters? What do you think you have to eat in order to make those neurotransmitters?
Then you want to go first? Well, sauerkraut.
Well, that's good. Yes, sauerkraut will help.
Sauerkraut helps improve the microbiome and increases the.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, and actually, it increases the microbiome, feeds the microbiome too, right? So all that good gut bacteria in there boosts the immune system, and then really, in turn, those actually make a lot of the neurotransmitters. You're actually pretty right about that. That's really good. Yep. So there's a lot of serotonin in our digestive system that, is created because of the environment. And the other thing that we need, there's another thing that we need, because I forgot about that. That's important. What's the other important food that we need to eat?
Vegetables?
Yeah, well, that's a good guess. Very good. Yep. Healthy. So we have healthy fats that we need for our brain, right? That's one thing.
Avocado.
Yep. And avocados, right? Fish oil, all of those really good things that our brain really needs. Because our brain is 60% fat. So we need a lot of it, but we need the good stuff, not the bad fat that a lot of foods have, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other thing we need is protein. So protein breaks down into amino acids, and the amino acids then turn into neurotransmitters. So how many kids do you know that don't eat enough protein?
A lot.
Right, because what are they eating?
Well, they eat protein, but not the right kind of protein.
Right. Yep. And in many cases, they're not eating healthy protein.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's one problem. And then sometimes kids are eating like hot dogs, or they're eating mac and cheese and kind of those kind of things. And they're not getting enough nutrients, and they're not getting enough protein. They're not getting enough healthy fats. Right.
Yeah.
So I didn't know any of this before. I just thought you go to a doctor and you get put on a medication. Right. So it was smart people like your mom that would teach me things like this. So I was very lucky in that I went to a lot of really good holistic doctors that were starting to teach me these things. And then I also did a lot of research on my own. And I realized that a lot of the research that I was reading, a lot of the other more medicine type doctors were not reading. Like, that our brain needs a lot of, it's actually the greediest of organs is our brain. We need a lot of nutrients. Minerals, things high in minerals. What's a food high in minerals that kids aren't eating?
Fish.
Yep. They get a lot of really iodine, healthy minerals, right, from any type of seaweed or any type of sea animal. Yep. And root vegetables. What's your favorite root vegetable to eat? Do you like sweet potatoes?
Yeah.
Do you like radishes? Those kind of foods? Yeah. So how many kids do you know that eat radishes and sweet potatoes? You guys are doing that. I know two right there. Two of you, right? So unfortunately, a lot of our kids are very malnourished, actually. Their bodies are starving for nutrients, and that's why they're acting badly. So a lot of kids aren't bad kids. A lot of them are just having a bad time because either they're eating a food that's disagreeing with them because their immune systems aren't great, and so they're reacting to some kind of food like dairy. Like, we found out that my kids were very, very sensitive to dairy and gluten, and that it actually makes them very, very, well, it makes my daughter very angry, and it makes my son cry when he has dairy. So we had to do that, So and our bodies just become loaded with toxins. It becomes loaded with foods that are not agreeing with our digestive system, and it causes a whole bunch of problems to happen in the body, which causes a lot of these symptoms. So that's a lot of what I've learned. And now when I have a new client, like especially kids, I always ask, like, well, what's the diet? And inevitably they will tell me that the diet isn't so good. So, right. So that's usually the first thing I'll say is, okay, did something bad happen to you when you were a child? And sometimes they say yes, and we can work on that in therapy. And sometimes they say, no, or, but I have, a very bad diet. So we have to look at that, right? So we have to look at the toxins that they're eating, the food that they're ingesting.
Right.
And, those are some of the things that we do to really address these things now. And so many kids can get off the medication, or even adults can get off the medication when they are provided the right nutrients and detox themselves.
Yeah, now we know that kids are getting sicker and sicker every day. Researchers have estimated that 1 in every 4th child will have autism by 2033. If we continue on this path that is crazy, right, Zen?
Yeah, that's super crazy.
That means every 4th child will have autism.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, because we're not addressing what causes autism, right? So there's many causes of it. One thing I did learn it in my book, Healing Without Hurting. I go through all of the underlying causes for it. And a lot of people think it's just genetic and that you're just born with it. But I have come to find out that it's actually epigenetics, which means it's what we're doing is we're introducing too many toxins that are literally changing our DNA. And when we change our DNA, our body stops detoxing very well because, the body's supposed to detox on its own. It stops doing that well. It stops making neurotransmitters from the foods we eat. So even if we eat a lot of protein and eat a lot of sauerkraut and do all of the right things, sometimes some people's bodies are not making making the chemicals that the body needs to survive because we're creating, and this is a big word, metabolic problems in the body. So absolutely, that's, what something I've learned is this is not genetics alone. Genetics probably plays some part in it, but it's actually what we're eating and how we're changing our genetics with the foods that we're eating, the environmental chemicals, anything we're eating, anything we're breathing in the air. So there's lots of underlying causes. All the toxins are really starting to add up.
I don't know about you, but this is really scary. With the rise of chronic disease in kids, we need to pay attention because we are the ones getting sicker. Parents, if you're listening, this is serious. We're getting sicker. Our futures are suffering. We need to make changes together as a family if you really care about our future. Our little bodies are becoming dumping bins of toxin, increasing the toxic load, leading to disease.
As you mentioned earlier, we know that the foods we eat every day for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks can either help us or hurt us. If kids want a healthier future and if parents want healthy children, what food should kids not be eating because it can lead to us kids getting sicker and sicker?
Very good question. So a lot of people will start with something called the Fine Goal diet, which will tell you what kind of foods you should eat, not eat for, say, ADHD and so forth. But what I found out that it costs a lot of money to join that. And a lot of things on that list, I wouldn't feed my kids because I don't think as healthy as they should be. So basically processed food. So one good thing to pay attention to is where are you shopping? And if you have to go to a conventional grocery store, that, it's important that you're looking for the healthy food section. What's really interesting to me, guys, is that you walk into a regular grocery store, there's only 2 aisles that say healthy food. What's the rest of it?
Just processed foods.
Yeah, terrible. And this is part of the problem is that people just go to the grocery store and go shopping and they think they're eating healthy food because even if they think it's healthy, if it has more than, a few ingredients, then we know it's very, very unhealthy for us. So food dye is becoming one of the biggest things that kids are eating. So they're eating, say, macaroni and cheese, and they're drinking soda, with tons of sugar, which is really not healthy at all because it lowers our immune system and it's also very toxic to our cells. It kills off our cells. We want to be eating real healthy food. So we want to shop the perimeter of the store, right? For the lots of fruits and vegetables. We want to have, if we're going to eat meat, we want to have like really, really, really healthy meat, grass-fed, organic meat sources because there's tons of antibiotics in a lot of the meat today. And we're finding that antibiotics is not good because it kills off all of that good gut bacteria. We want to eat foods that are free of pesticides because pesticides also kill off all our good gut bacteria. Because if you think about it, what is a pesticide? It kills bugs, right?
Yeah, and we have all those bugs in our belly, right, Zen?
Yeah, they're called the microbiome.
That's right. Right. So if we're eating all those foods, we're just killing off all our good, bacteria, which helps us stay healthy. So not only are we seeing chronic disease in children now, 1 out of 2 now, 54% of our kids now have some type of diabetes or heart condition or asthma. Asthma has become so common, or a seizure disorder. And it's very, very sad what's happening. And even if they don't have those issues, people are very scared about getting the coronavirus, right? They're very scared about getting the flu. And it's really all about boosting our immune system. So if our kids are eating nutrient dense food that have lots of zinc and lots of vitamin C and lots of vitamin D, and we're getting lots of sunshine, we don't have to fear getting even the virus, getting viruses. So unfortunately, we've really gotten to a point where we're really relying on our pharmaceutical companies to tell us how to stay healthy, and they've never gotten us healthy. They're there. It's a Band-Aid. And in some cases, that Band-Aid actually causes more side effects and symptoms than the illness itself. So we have to be kind of careful. And sometimes it's good. We want it. We need it, because sometimes there's a need, say for an antibiotic, because somebody has a really bad infection. However, unfortunately, we're just using that 100% of the time instead of relying on our own body's innate wisdom to heal itself. And it does that with lots of support, which includes the healthy foods that we're eating, the snacks. My kids, when they eat snacks, like you guys probably, right? Their snacks consist of a piece of fruit, some vegetables. Maybe we have some hummus. I love hummus, right? That's our snack, right? That's what we eat. And so, and we have chocolate bars, like, dark chocolate, really good. And we, after dinner, they might just get a little square of a piece of chocolate, because chocolate has a lot of good, good properties in it too, for our brain. So they can have a little bit of sweet, but it's not
chocolate.
You like chocolate?
Yeah, we like to get chocolates that they're sugarless, but they have honey inside of them.
Yes.
Chocolate, sugarless chocolates, but instead of sugar, we actually replace it with honey.
Right. So there's actually so we need to be replacing our sugar with honey, molasses, because molasses also has a lot of good, protein in it and things, and also real maple syrup. None of that Aunt Jemima stuff, right? Because it has loaded with nutrients. So much, much healthier for us. We really have to go back to our great-great-grandparents actually used to eat a lot healthier. And a lot of other countries eat a lot healthier than we eat here. So our Western diet has really, really made a lot of kids, and a lot of people sick. There's so many 40-year-olds now on tons of medication, where years ago, you weren't put on a medication until you were in your late 70s. So we have a lot of people dependent on a lot of medication, and that's, for psychiatric illnesses as well as medical, other medical issues.
What would you tell parents and kids if they're picky eaters?
That's a very good question. So first of all, picky eating has become like a normal thing, right? Everyone's picky. So no one's realizing that that's not okay, right? So when you have a picky eater, what that means to me is that the immune system is just malfunctioning and the digestive system is unhappy. Because I really do believe that kids intuitively know when something they're eating is hurting their stomach. So if you give them raw broccoli and their bodies are very inflamed because they're eating a lot of the wrong foods, because their immune systems are all out of whack, what's going to end up happening is that their bodies are not going to, they're going to want to reject the food. They're not going to want the food because it's hurting them. And sugar is a lot easier to digest. So kids love sugar, and it's very addicting. And so kids usually want carbohydrates in the form of pasta and cookies and cakes and white flour and white bread. And they're also drinking a lot of regular milk, which, all of those things are inflaming the intestinal system. And so when they try to eat food, they're really not getting the nutrients that they need. And on top of it, it's just a big, huge mess. So, unfortunately, picky eating really means that we really need to address the gut health. Gut health is the most important thing. Most people don't realize that, but it might mean eliminating some food sensitivities. Like they might be eating something that's causing that inflammation, and they really have to remove the food. And then at the same time, introduce healing foods like, aloe, slippery elm, marshmallow balm. So there's some really good herbal supplements and remedies that actually seal the gut wall. So very often when we have a situation where there's leaky gut syndrome or an inflamed intestinal system, we really have to go in there and heal the gut. We have to, a lot of times there's too much yeast in the gut. So yeast is that bad bacteria that's in there too.
Yeah.
Right. And and what do you think the bad bacteria really like to eat?
Sugar.
Right. That's their main thing. So
That's why it's addicting now.
It's very addicting. So the body wants it because it's feeding the yeast. And the yeast, when it mixes with the sugar, right, it ferments. And it's not a good fermentation. It's almost like alcohol. So that's why some kids can get kind of cuckoo when they have sugar, right? Because it mixes with the yeast, and all of a sudden you have like an effect that it's almost like if a child had like too many beers or something, because it does the same thing. It causes like an alcohol in there. And that's also very addicting. So it's a very bad vicious cycle when you have a child that's not eating well, that's eating a lot of carbs and sugar, and the yeast in the gut, and it's one big mess. Right?
Yeah, that's horrible, right?
Horrible.
What other things you mentioned all of those remedies that could help in the supplements. What other things are important for kids to get healthy and parents can incorporate if their child has autism, ADHD, or other chronic conditions?
So my big advice, because I think you'll probably ask me this, like what type of doctors to see and what do you do, right? That'll probably be one of your next questions. So I really think that people really need to go to see a holistic pediatrician. And if they don't have one in the general area, that, a lot of naturopathic physicians can also be very helpful. Functional medicine doctors, these types of practitioners are really wonderful because they look at the whole body. And what's interesting about treating autism or ADHD is that every single person is their own individual person. So everybody has their own set of symptoms, and they also have their whole own set of what's going on with them. So unfortunately, it would be great if we could just say, okay, if you have ADHD, take this supplement, or if you have, but we could be taking a whole bunch of supplements, but if we're not healing the gut first, the body won't assimilate those supplements, and we'll just be basically throwing our money away. So healing the gut is first. So I think going to a doctor that understands these conditions and knows how to use a systems biology approach to treating these conditions, and then looking for things like food sensitivities, looking for things like yeast overgrowth. You'll do a whole battery of testing is really helpful. So an OATS test, OATS, could look for nutritional deficiencies. And then there are certain labs that you can actually do a poop test that will show you what's going on in the intestinal system, right? So we'll go get, I'm sure you guys have done these tests before. You guys are smiling. My kids are like, oh, we don't want to do this. But it's an inflammation marker. So we want to look for inflammation. We want to look for yeast. So there's lots of different tests. And I definitely recommend seeking out a practitioner, because then you can get these tests done and then you know exactly how to treat it. But what we usually look for is nutritional deficiencies. Some of the biggest nutritional deficiencies that we see in children with ADHD and autism is a lot of B vitamins. So this is easy to remember. B vitamins equal brain vitamins. So every single B vitamin is very, very important. B vitamins, certainly B6, B9, B12, like folate, and all of those kind of nutrients, they actually are a natural stimulant. And so sometimes in place of Ritalin or Adderall for ADHD, you can take a complex B vitamin in the morning. I wouldn't recommend it at night because it could make you not want to sleep because it's a little bit of a stimulant. But sometimes even giving a little bit of a B vitamin in the morning could really, really be helpful. The other thing that we find is really, really helpful is the fatty acids, right? So the avocados, the nuts, the seeds, fish oil. Some kids don't do well on fish oil. Some do. So you just have to know that. And sometimes it's trial and error, but fish oil, very often some of the supplements are not enough fish oil. Like you might need, DHA and EPA. You need a pretty high, say 1,000 milligrams a day or more, depending on the child or the person. Again, like our brain's all fat mostly. So that's one of the things. It also can act like a stimulant. So also good to do that in the morning. So those are the two biggest things. But the other thing that's interesting is zinc deficiency will cause impulsivity, right? How many kids might that are impulsive or run around or dart around, or they could have a zinc deficiency. If you're really stressed and anxious, you know what the mineral is, the calming mineral? What's the calming mineral?
Magnesium.
Yes, magnesium.
That's
Very good.
There's a thing called calm, right? Is there any like that?
Oh, you guys take that, right?
Magnesium.
The calm. Yep. Very good. Magnesium is very, very good. A lot of kids with gut issues too could have some constipation issues, and magnesium is one of the best things we could do for that. So it helps with regularity and getting because one way we detox actually is in the bathroom. So if we're not going to the bathroom often enough, which happens with kids that have these issues, that could cause a lot of issues and could also cause, them to store toxins in the body. And things like heavy metal can't be excreted from your body unless you have enough minerals on board. So mineral deficiency is one of the most important things to look into when you're looking to address these issues. That, of course, and probiotics. But better than probiotics would be sauerkraut, right? Things like that. We love that. We just take a spoonful of that all the time. We love sauerkraut.
We have bone broth.
And bone broth. Absolutely. We make bone broth too. Very good for you. But the collagen in the bone broth also heals the intestinal system and keeps it really lubricated and happy. So we really want to create a really happy environment with the microbiome in our gut and in our intestinal tract. We like to keep, it needs to be, kind of lubricated, and that could be helped with the bone broth, also with the fish oil. And we want it to keep it really like low inflammation. That's the key, because inflammation in our gut will cause inflammation up here.
Yeah. So like you said, they're connected. The brain and the gut are connected.
Right. Absolutely. And another thing it's important to mention too, that because a lot of kids' immune systems are kind of out of whack, what could happen is they can get a simple thing like a strep infection, right? Or they can get Lyme disease, or they can get something else like that. And that will cause brain inflammation again, and could really cause a lot of psychiatric symptoms. So it's very important that if parents out there have kids that are really, struggling and having like OCD symptoms or being violent or angry all the time, that they look into something called pediatric autoimmune encephalitis, which is caused by a dysregulated immune system, because the immune system is not doing its job at keeping viruses and stuff at bay, that it can cause inflammation of the brain. So that's also important to be looking at. But when you seek a practitioner that understands all of these things, they're sort of looking for all of that in the testing.
You are so inspirational. Such great information. You have given families so much hope. What is one thing families and kids can start today?
So the one thing that kids can start today is starting to cook with their parents and shop with them and teach their parents about start reading labels, start going shopping together, start growing a garden together, even if it's an herb garden in the winter, if you can't get outside. Very important that the kids get really involved in kind of bringing health back into their lives and in their families' lives. Parents, are very, very often will help their kids probably before they'll help themselves. So the important thing too is to make this a family affair. I have a lot of families that they'll do a special diet for one kid and the other kid's still eating a lot of those foods and the dad is still, whatever. It's so much easier if everyone can get on board and everyone can eat the same way, because this isn't only about ADHD, depression, and anxiety. This is about our health. So sometimes we have to spend a little bit more money at the grocery store buying organic food, eating more whole food, dense food. It takes a little longer to cook. But it doesn't really, because if you think about it, when you make processed food, say hamburger helper, right? We still have to brown the ground beef, and we still have to make the pasta. So what's the difference if we do that, like say a gluten-free pasta, and we're making, a better, healthier beef? And then whatever happens to, we just go into the cabinet and grab the spices, the curcumin, the paprika, whatever we need to make the meal really tasty and really healthy. Because otherwise we're just pouring a packet of chemicals on our food, basically, and ruining it. So that would be my first thing, is start in the kitchen. That's the least expensive thing to do, actually. Cleaning out your cabinets, making sure that you only have some, healthier food in there, and just start weaning it out. And at first it could be very daunting if people are eating really unhealthy. So one of the first things to do, honestly, is to try to substitute the things that children are eating with healthier things. So if they're used to eating, say, Dunkin' Donuts every day, and they're dying for their Dunkin' Donuts, then you could make homemade from scratch Dunkin' Donuts at home. So that's a start, because, and as they do that, they'll notice that they'll crave some of those really high, and you can make it with honey instead, and you make it with, better flour, maybe gluten-free flour, or almond flour, or so something a lot healthier. And by doing that, slowly you start turning everyone over to eating a lot healthier. That's what we did. We started to kind of just start weaning our old food in, and we'd replace it with something basically the same, but we would do it in a more healthy way.
That's awesome.
Super awesome. Love it. I hope kids and parents are listening today. There's so much us kids can do to empower our brains and our bodies for overall health and wellness. Where can people learn more about you and your work?
So I am on Facebook as Healing ADHD and Asperger's Without Hurting. I am also on Instagram, Healing Without Hurting. I also have a website, healingwithouthurting.com. And if anyone listening would like to contact me, I'm at healingwithouthurting@gmail.com.
That was so empowering. Everyone, make sure to follow Ms. Kozek on social media. To recap Ms. Kozek's key points: 1. Most kids are eating the kids' menu, filled with artificial foods, processed carbs, and sugars, also known as the standard American diet. Parents, stop poisoning our little bodies, right, son?
Yeah.
We don't want junk food, so stop. We don't want junk food, GMOs, and artificial foods.
GMOs not. Please, for the sake of our future, for the sake of our health.
Number 2, focus on real food, lots of veggies, eat clean protein and healthy fat. 3, we need to eat to detoxify by eating lots of raw fruits, veggies, herbs, spices with lots of detoxifying effects. 4, as Ms. Kozek said, start in the kitchen. Make this a family affair. Do this together.
Make sure to keep our bowls moving and switch our toxic thing around your house, like chemicals, with natural things. Wow, Ms. Kozek. That was so amazing. You were such an inspiration to so many parents and kids. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, guys.
And I hope parents and kids understand how our everyday decision can either make us healthy or sicker. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Until next time, I'm Zain Ansari.
And I'm Abdullah.
Follow my family and I on social media, Holistic Mom MD. And look out for my mom's book, The Holistic RX, your guide to healing chronic inflammation and disease, and the amazing children's book we wrote together. that one, called Adam's Healing Adventure. So check it out on Amazon. Yay! Remember, our bodies and our health is a huge blessing, and we need to take care of our bodies the best we know how. Join us next week for another episode of the Holistic Kids Show, where kids are empowering kids. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you, guys.